Seven, six, five, four, three, two, one.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Hello everybody, I'm your host Ashton, and welcome back to The Sound of Fear, the show where we break down the sounds that make your blood run cold. It's our job to find out which songs bring the fear and which ones fall flat. Today we're going to be covering the OG slasher himself, Michael Myers, and the score that's become synonymous with the horror genre. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's get right into it. We get our first track titled Halloween Theme before the film even starts. And now would be a good time to mention that this movie's composer is John Carpenter. Does that sound familiar? It should. Carpenter is one of the most prolific directors in horror history, and he's also well known for composing all of the scores for his movies. The film starts in the fictional town of Haddonfield, Illinois on Halloween night, 1963. We see the outside of a house, and the camera quickly approaches, and we can see the outline of a young couple making out. The camera circles its way to the back of the house where the door is open with our next track titled Halloween 1963. The invader stalks through the home with a kitchen knife, barely avoiding being seen by the boyfriend who's heading home for the night. Creeping to the top of the stairs, the invader finds a clown mask and puts it on, creating this cool effect for the camera. The camera sets its sights on the girl as the invader sneaks up behind her. She turns around and yells, "Michael," meaning she knows this person. But right as she does, we get one of the goofiest kills you'll ever see, and the first of the entire movie. Heading back outside, Michael runs into a couple people who turn out to be his parents. This is when we find out that Michael is only a kid, being only 6 years old, and that girl that he just killed was his older sister Judith. We jump 15 years into the future, October 30th, the night before Halloween. A doctor and a nurse are driving to a mental hospital through the rain when the doctor mentions that the patient they're going after hasn't spoken a word in 15 years. More and more is revealed about how much of a monster this specific inmate is. They must keep him under heavy surveillance and drug him just to take him to court. As the pair arrive at the hospital, they see patients walking around outside and that the front gate has been broken open. Our next track, titled The Evil Is Gone, begins to play as we see that something has gone seriously wrong. The doctor, whose name is Dr. Loomis, gets out to call the hospital and tell them what's happened, when all of a sudden one of the patients jumps on top of the car, scaring the nurse out and stealing it. Dr. Loomis refers to this patient as the Evil, but we know him better as Michael Myers. Also, something that everyone needs to think about, if Michael spent 15 years in a mental hospital, how did he learn how to drive a car? Back in present-day Haddonfield, we see a high school student named Laurie Strode walking to school with our next track titled Halloween 1978. Laurie is played by a young Jamie Lee Curtis, with this being her first feature film debut and putting her on the map of Hollywood, leading to a successful career spanning over 5 decades. Laurie is spotted on her walk to school by a young boy named Tommy, and we find out that she is actually Tommy's babysitter, and she's getting paid to spend Halloween night with him. The pair stops so Laurie can drop off a pair of keys to a house that her dad is selling, but Tommy refuses to go up to it because it's the Myers house, the same one that Michael killed his sister in all those years ago. Just as Laurie turns her back to the house, a figure appears in the doorway with our next track, if you can even call it that, Stinger. We cut to see Dr. Loomis yelling at the supervisor of the hospital, telling them that no one listened to him and that they should have never tried to transfer Michael. Dr. Loomis hops in his car to head to Haddonfield, as he knows that's exactly where Michael is going to go. Back in Haddonfield, Laurie is in class when she looks out the window to see something strange. A man in a white mask standing behind a car staring directly at her with our next track titled Classroom. Looking back outside, the man and the car are both gone, and I think we can guess who this was, right? At the end of the school day, we see Tommy walking outside, getting followed by your run-of-the-mill bullies who are telling him that the boogeyman's gonna get him. The bullies make a run for it, with one of them running directly into someone who has their own theme music, titled The Shape. Michael begins to follow Tommy as he walks home alone before he drives off. Somewhere in between the hospital and Haddonfield, Dr. Loomis makes a call to the Haddonfield police to warn them about Michael when he notices a crashed tow truck. As Loomis runs back to his car, the camera pans over and we see the dead trucker without any clothes, showing where Michael got his outfit from. This scene is accompanied by our next track titled Tow Truck. Back in town, Lori is walking with her friends Linda and Annie when she stops and spots a car driving up next to them. The car drives slowly past the girls with our next track titled Speed Kills. The girls make plans for the night and decide to all hang out with Annie as she is also babysitting. They walk home with our next track titled Walking Home. If you guys can't already tell, old John really likes music and hates reusing tracks, so we get a lot of new ones. Linda breaks off to go home when we get this really funny shot of Michael standing halfway behind a hedge bush. This is accompanied by our next track titled The Hedge. Lori is the only one who sees him, and before she can point him out, he's gone. And Annie doesn't believe her and makes fun of her the whole way home. They split up again, and Lori is once again alone when she runs right into the sheriff, who turns out to be Annie's dad. Finally home, Lori drops her books on her bed and goes to shut the window when she again sees Michael in her backyard in the clotheslines. This also starts our next track titled, you guessed it, Clothesline. Lori, rightfully terrified, tries to ignore it and gets ready to get picked up by Annie when we get another new track titled Waiting for Annie. Across town, Dr. Loomis is looking for Judith Meyer's grave when he finds that someone dug up the entire grave and took it with them. This realization starts our next track titled He Came Home. Back in the car, we see Lori and Annie passing a blunt, listening to Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. Throwing out their weed as fast as they can, Lori and Annie run into her dad, the sheriff, who tells them someone broke into the hardware store. All they stole was some Halloween masks, a rope, and a couple of knives. What do you think that could have been? As the girls leave, Dr. Loomis comes running up to talk to the sheriff, and this is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie. It's a cartoon. Michael drives in Dr. Loomis's car, remind you, right behind the two of them, and neither of them see him.
Better come correct when you speak to me. Open up them.
Our next track, Dusk, starts as Michael continues to follow these girls as he has been for the past 15 minutes, and they still haven't noticed he's there. They deserve what's coming to them. Annie drops Lori off to babysit Tommy and then parks right across the street to babysit Lindsay, another young girl. Michael parks his car and creepily watches Annie as she walks up to the house with our next track titled Trick or Treat. Pulling up to the old Myers house, Dr. Loomis and the sheriff head inside to investigate with our next track titled The Haunted House. Inside, Loomis explains that there's nothing left of Michael. No semblance of humanity or anything behind his pale eyes. We also get our next track titled The Devil's Eyes. Loomis decides it's best for him to stay and wait at the Myers house for Michael to return so that he can finally kill him. Laurie is reading Tommy a book when he asks her, "What's the boogeyman?" Kids are creepy, and I would have hit Tommy with the fist of fury if he had even thought of asking me a creepy ass question like that. We get a call from Annie where Annie explains to them that Lindsay's dog is acting weird, and we get a shot looking through the window, and we get another track titled The Kitchen. While Laurie is on the phone, Tommy heads over to the window and peers out to see Michael Myers standing in Lindsay's yard. He goes to tell Laurie, but by the time they get back, he's gone. Michael, standing on the lawn looking like a mannequin, is accompanied by our next track, eerily titled The Boogeyman is Outside. Back across the street, Michael is looking in on Annie and getting a bit too excited when she starts changing and he knocks over a plant. Despite hearing a clear shattering sound, Annie refuses to do anything, showing a clear lack of survival skills. I wrote this script at 5 a.m., and if you can't already tell, I was very upset with these characters and I was taking out a lot of pent up aggression on them. Outside, Michael kills the family dog, and Annie just doesn't give a shit. See, look at how I'm so mad. I literally wrote out myself screaming in the script. Like, I'm not even screaming because it's like midnight right now when I'm recording this, but literally I wrote myself to scream. This was like 5 a.m. We get our next track, you could say, titled Stinger 2. And this was so loud when I heard it while recording, I literally threw my headset off my head. Like scared, a reaction. I'm not even joking, that's not a joke. Laurie and Tommy sit down to watch The Thing from Another World, which is somewhat foreshadowing as John Carpenter would go on to remake this movie in 1982. One of the greatest movies, not just of horror, but of all time. Annie goes to do a load of laundry in the shed, because I guess outdoor laundry machines were a thing people used to do. She's accompanied by our next track titled Doing Laundry. The door shuts behind her and the lights won't work. And guess who's standing in the doorway behind her with their own theme song titled The Shape Lurking. The door is officially locked now, and Annie realizes this with our next track titled Unlock the Door. Holy shit, John, you really know how to make my job hard. There's a new track every like 20 seconds. But I'll give you, at least you keep them in order. You keep the track numbers in order with their appearance in the movie. I'm looking at some of you other composers out there. You know who you are. Lindsay can't hear Annie calling for help outside because she's in the living room with The Thing from Another World turned up way too loud, which is honestly respectable. Annie doesn't notice Michael appearing in the window behind her with another track titled The Shape at the Door. Lindsay picks up the phone to hear Paul, Annie's boyfriend, and he tells her to go and get Annie and put her on the phone. Absolutely pissed that she has to get up from her movie, Lindsay does it anyway. She finds Annie in the wash house, stuck in the window, and she gets her unstuck and the two run back to the house together. Annie takes Lindsay across the street to hang out with Laurie and Tommy so she can go pick up her boyfriend Paul. And as she walks back to her car, we see Michael get up from behind the car he was hiding behind with our next track titled Stinger 3. This track is only 3 seconds long. Does it even count? I don't know. I make the rules and I say it does, so. She gets in her car, noticing that all the windows are fogged up, when Michael grabs her from the back seat and slits her throat, leaving her laying on the car horn. This scene has a couple more 10-second long tracks, such as Annie's Death and Stinger number 4. While playing a prank on Lindsay, Tommy sees the boogeyman carrying Annie's body back into the house But again, he's the only one to see it happen. Back at the Myers house, Loomis sees a group of kids trying to mess with the house and scares them off before getting jump scared by the sheriff himself. Loomis convinces him to keep searching as he is 110% sure that Michael is here in Haddonfield and will kill again. We see Linda and her boyfriend Bob pull up outside of Lindsay's house as they're there to hang out with Annie. The couple start making out on the couch and the camera pans away with our next track titled Empty Street, showing that Michael is never too far away. Linda calls Lori and asks if she knows where Annie is, to which she says no one really knows. And that means that they have the house to themselves for the night. While Linda and Bob are doing the dirty, who the fuck writes this? Michael's shadow walks by again with another 7-second track titled Stinger 5. Bob heads downstairs to get some beers when boom, Michael's smoking on that Bob pack. I really wrote that. This was like a month ago. I really wrote that. Back upstairs, Linda is in bed when she sees the door open and she sees Michael in a ghost costume. Linda assumes it's Bob just playing a trick on her. Linda gets upset and calls Lori on the phone, putting her back towards Michael, starting our next track titled The Phone Cord. Michael grabs the phone cord and strangles Linda with it as Lori listens from the other side of the line. Lori, now extremely concerned, checks on the kids and we get our next track titled Lock the Door. Back at the Myers house, Loomis sees his car that was stolen by Michael parked right down the street. And as he goes to investigate, we get our next track titled He's Here. Lori leaves the house to go and check on her friends, and we again get our next track titled Lights Out. With the front door being locked, Lori heads around back to walk into the kitchen, but Bob's body is gone. Hearing noises upstairs, Lori thinks it's Annie playing a trick on her, and she goes to investigate with our next track titled Cut It Out. Lori enters the bedroom to find Annie's dead body on the bed with the entire gravestone of Judith Myers on the bed with her. And we get another very iconic track titled Tombstone. She quickly finds her other friends stuffed in the closets and cabinets around the room. Running into the hallway, she comes face to face with Michael himself and barely avoids a fatal stab by falling over the railing and down the stairs. Michael begins to chase her with our next track titled The Shape Stalks Lori. She runs into the kitchen and locks the door behind her, but somehow Michael barricaded the outside door with a rake from the outside, but he's inside? I don't know how he had the time to do all this. I don't know. Lori punches a hole through the glass, freeing her from the kitchen, and she runs into the street screaming for help. She runs up to the neighbor's house and bangs on their doors, begging for help, and when they see her, they just shut the blinds and turn off the lights. The 70s were a crazy time, man. Lori runs back to Tommy's house and bangs on the door until Tommy lets her inside. They are safe despite Tommy's slow-ass reaction time. She hurries Tommy upstairs and tells him and Lindsay to hide. She sits in the living room clutching a crocheting needle with our next track titled Turn Around. She gets a good hit on Michael, stabbing him right in the neck and sitting into the ground. She grabs Michael's knife and sees him in the Family Guy death pose before she begins to relax. We get our next track, and this is a long one, titled Unlock the Door / The Hanger. Limping her way upstairs, Lori goes to the kids and comforts them when Tommy sees Michael coming up the stairs behind her. This guy has to be some sort of zombie with all the stuff he ends up living through. It's insane. Lori locks the kids in Tommy's bedroom and runs into the master bedroom and hides in the closet, with this being one of the most iconic scenes from the whole movie. Michael begins breaking down the door to get into the closet, a la Jack Torrance from The Shining. Laurie sees her chance and grabs one of the hangers and stabs Michael right in the eye. He drops his knife and Laurie doesn't waste a second grabbing it and getting a gut shot on him, sending him to the ground for the second time. She limps out of the closet and over Michael and tells the kids that they need to get out of the house and run to the neighbors and get help. Completely exhausted, Laurie sits down in the doorway, only for Michael to get right back up. Dr. Loomis sees the kids running from the house screaming and knows immediately what's going on inside. Our next track, Last Assault, begins to play as Michael sneaks up behind Laurie. He grabs her and starts strangling her, but Laurie is able to force off his mask and we're able to see Michael's face for the first time. Loomis shows up just in time and blasts Michael and keeps blasting him until he falls off the second-story balcony. We get a shot of Michael laying on the ground with our next stinger titled Stinger 6. Laurie asks if that was the boogeyman, to which the doctor responds with a harrowing yes. Looking over the balcony, Loomis checks on the body, only to see that it's gone. And we get our next track titled End Credits. Halloween is one of the most iconic horror movies of all time, and rightfully so. The quality of the soundtrack is immaculate, as is really anything made by John Carpenter. Without further ado, let's move on to the staff stars, where we here at The Sound of Fear share what we thought about the movie. These are our ratings for John Carpenter's Halloween. We want to thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the movie and the amazing score that supports it. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.